Hello and welcome to Cafe DC. I'm Faiz Rahman. Our guest today is a young activist, a young lady who's been based here in Washington for the last 3 years, Miss Nazia Khan. Nazia, thank you very much for joining us. And while I'm talking to you, I'll introduce your background a little bit. You're working with the Atlantic Council as the assistant director of a program which is very important when it comes to U.S.-Pakistan relations. You're training some young leaders from Pakistan, and you call this program ELP, which is the Emerging Leaders from Pakistan. So please tell us about this program first. What does it mean, and your role, and how satisfied you are with the results of this program?
So
long question. But all right, okay,
yes. So ELP, the Emerging Leaders of Pakistan, started about 3 years ago by the Atlantic Council South Asia Center.
Okay.
The idea of this program is to really identify, cultivate, and continue to support young civil society leaders from Pakistan, from across Pakistan. So each year we bring 15 young leaders that really represent the diversity of the country. So we're representing gender diversity, geographic diversity, and of course sector diversity. They're all working in different sectors.
Not just journalists, not just lawyers, or accountants, like different people.
Correct.
From different professions. Yeah.
Each year the 15 are really a broad cross-section of all of the work that's going on at that level, at that young activist level.
Exactly. Nazia, it's a very impressive program, and we have also at VOA interacted with them. Most of them, when they come here, they come to the Urdu service, they talk to us, and we also put them on our programs, TV and radio as well. And I'm sure the Atlantic Council does a very good job of selecting those candidates. But before we move forward, what is the Atlantic Council? I'm sure a lot of people in Pakistan aren't very familiar with the role of this organization. This is a think tank, a private organization, not associated with the government, the United States government. So please.
So the Atlantic Council is a foreign policy think tank operating out of Washington, D.C. We have a mixture of functional programs and regional programs. So the South Asia Center that operates the ELP is a regional program. So we look at the region more broadly. We look at traditional security threats. We look at non-traditional security threats, and really try to identify all of the issues that are facing the region and how we can address them at the policy level.
Okay, so that's basically a think tank. Again, an independent think tank, not associated with the government of United States. Okay, so but this program, is it totally funded by the council, or do you accept money from the State Department or the embassy, U.S. Embassy in Pakistan? How does the funding part happen?
So with all of our programs, the funding is independent. It's usually grant-based. So for this one in particular, it's twofold. So we are funded in part by the Carnegie Corporation of New York. They funded a large chunk of this program since its inception. And then in part, it's also funded by the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad. So that is the U.S. State Department through its partnership with Meridian International Center. So they are our implementing partners. They play a role in kind of helping us guide just the general direction of it, but those are the two funders since its inception.
You're from the state of Oklahoma.
Correct.
And then you went to school in college in Michigan, and then you've been here for 3 years. And the reason I'm saying this, your answers are very concise and precise. You're not like going on and on. This is good. So, and why is it? I can probably guess, because you've been also an advocate of civil rights, and you have worked with some other organizations. I think you have to go out and present your case in a very concise and precise way. So is it true that you have been an activist as well?
Absolutely. I mean, before I came to Washington, D.C. and started working in policy, I was at an advocacy organization that was working more at the community level, and so that does help kind of train you to sell your case a little bit, and concise answers are usually.
So what's your degree? What's your educational background?
So at the University of Michigan, I studied political science, and Middle Eastern affairs, and so
yeah, good.
Yeah, so really looking at that international aspect.
Okay, so let's go back to this program, the Emerging Leaders. Okay, so first we'll focus on the part here. When they come here, what exactly they do? What's the duration of this program for one candidate, and what are the expectations And at the end of this program, is there any rigorous evaluation criterion that you follow, or how does it work? Please.
So whenever a fellow is selected, the first part of the fellowship, which is just one part of a broader engagement, is a 3-week study tour of the United States.
3 weeks.
So during that tour, which currently the 4th class is in DC and taking part in that tour, during that tour we normally visit 4 cities in the United States. So we go to New York City usually, we go to Washington, D.C., we go to another city in Middle America generally, so that the fellows...
So New York and Washington are given, fixed, and then you select 2 more cities.
We usually, so in the past we've always ended up in San Francisco,
Okay.
and we usually, that middle city usually changes. So in the past we've gone to Atlanta, Kansas City, Detroit, and this year we will be going to Austin.
So that gives them a very good feel of the country.
Right, right. So New York, we get a sense, we get to visit foundations, media agencies, a number of activist organizations that are working at the grassroots. In DC, of course, we visit government agencies, nonprofits, think tanks. That middle city, usually the fellows participate in a homestay. So they really get a sense of what an average day in the life of an American is. And then in the final city, in San Francisco, we get to meet with entrepreneurs, tech companies, startups. So it's a really broad, diverse array of meetings.
So is it 3 weeks total, the program, just for one candidate? It's like
so the fellowship starts off, it kicks off with that 3-week program, and then a really important part of the fellowship for us is the fellows return to Pakistan and continue their work there. So we stay engaged with them. We usually visit the country at least once, if not more, to bring the fellows together again and to kind of initiate more trainings, usually communications trainings, other meetups and networking events with young people across the country in Pakistan. And we also stay engaged, just as at the Atlantic Council, we stay engaged with each of them individually and ensure that they continue to grow and really have connections because of this fellowship.
Good. Nazia, yes, we know they go to these places, big cities, and and they visit museums, think tanks. But what is it that they actually learn while here? What's the curriculum, so to speak? What is it that they have to go through? There's a program, right? So are there like certain segments, certain things that they have to learn?
Right. So the study tour is pretty diverse. Some of the key goalposts for us whenever we're conceptualizing which meetings to schedule, we're looking for the fellows to build their communications training, to be able to sell their message and to share their message, and just really increase their capacity to learn. We're looking for them to gain best practices just kind of within their own context. So maybe meeting with an advocacy organization here will help them kind of brand better. Meeting with a tech company will give them ideas, tangible things that they can implement in the country. Another really big component of the program is to really look at the U.S.-Pakistan relationship as a whole. We're addressing misperceptions on both sides of the relationship. And each week, after a slew of meetings, we usually have a conversation about some of the stereotypes they had coming in and what was broken because of the interactions that they've had in the U.S. So that's another core component, is that we do want to build those interactions that really give them a sense of what America is about, and then the other way around as well. So some of the people that they are meeting with really do have misperceptions about Pakistan and young leaders and civil society in Pakistan.
So there is a dialogue between them and groups here,
correct,
like American Kids or American
it goes both ways.
Okay, good.
Definitely.
I said kids. Are they necessarily just kids, young adults, or you also like just emerging leaders, right? So they could be
emerging leaders. So we are
age range.
So we are selecting leaders who are between the ages of 18 and 30.
Okay.
So the median age each year has been about 26 or 27, because a core component really is someone who's established something in their community, someone who's innovating, and has really built change in their country. And so usually it tends to be in the higher end, so 25, 26.
I see.
Yeah.
Nazia, you said one of the goals is to remove and address some misperceptions on both sides. And for this, they interact with a lot of young people here in this country during their tours to these cities, right? So any anecdote, anything in particular that you like to mention, any example of some, very misperception, so to speak, like, yes, you help address that misperception about America as well as Pakistan. Or let's put it this way, what is the biggest, the top item that you see on their list?
Of stereotypes.
Yeah, what is the, yes, exactly.
I think one of the biggest stereotypes coming in this year, with this group in particular, is that there's this assumption that they assume that Americans believe that all Pakistanis are violent, that all Pakistanis are just like the people that are really represented in the news media. And then there's also, going with that, a lot of the 15...
It's very interesting the way you put it forward. Basically what you're saying, they believe that the Americans believe that the Pakistanis are violent. It's not, and of course, a stereotype of Pakistan here in this country, through the media and everything, that is probably, that could be a true statement, isn't it?
Well, I think what's interesting is in our meetings, we met with the New York Times, we met with actually BuzzFeed, an investigative journalist from BuzzFeed, and we've met with other organizations that do talk about Pakistan. And what we've heard almost unanimously is it's not necessarily our job as Americans to portray a positive image of Pakistan.
Of course not. Yeah.
That's your job. And so I think that that's been a little bit eye-opening for them. Another, just a lighter one, is a lot of the fellows kind of come in and believe that Americans are very formal. And each meeting is going to be very strict and structured, and timing is so important for Americans. And out of New York, they realize that people are just a little, they're casual, they're laid back.
Exactly. Like this show.
Right.
Okay.
And so that, that's a little bit of a lighter one.
Okay.
Another thing that I think has been really interesting for me is that they're starting to see that America is not a completely safe place either, that there are pockets of insecurity, there are neighborhoods where, people are afraid to go to. So when you think about Pakistan and how, there are security situations on the ground there, that also exists in America in a way. And so that's been one that's come up a lot.
Nazia, perfect time to take a short break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we'll talk about the other part of this program, which is in Pakistan, basically how do you select these candidates, and maybe a few more things here, what happens when they're here. So our discussion with young Nazia Khan, the activist and also now a manager of a very important program, will continue in a minute. Please stay with us.
Facebook, of course, has been probably the most important for us. Facebook, Twitter, social media, because mobile penetration in Pakistan is so huge.
Welcome back. I'm Faiz Rahman and you're watching Cafe DC. Our guest today is Nazia Khan. She is an assistant director at the Atlantic Council running the Emerging Leaders from Pakistan program. Again, welcome back, Nazia. So we were talking about the program's portion here in this country, some of the challenges and the program that they go through. Now let's talk about the selection process. How do you identify these candidates and are you satisfied with the selection? I have met them when they come here and they're pretty impressive lot. So the process, so that our viewers can also find out how to apply, where to apply, who to get in touch with, the whole process. Can you please spend a few minutes on this?
Absolutely. So each year at the beginning of the year, probably January, February, the Atlantic Council releases an application process that really is just focused on what an individual is doing in Pakistan. So it consists of 6 or 7 essay questions that they submit to us. From there, whenever we receive applications, the deadline's usually March or April.
How do you advertise those openings? Through newspapers or just through your website? How do they know that, yes, there are these openings for them to apply?
Well, that's an important component. Thank you for raising that. we really are trying to increase our reach across Pakistan because we do want that diversity. And so each year we've really worked with local partners on the ground. So Yes Engagement Network that works with youth across the ground in Pakistan has been really helpful in disseminating the application. We also asked our partners at universities, our supporters, and just colleagues at universities across the country to help disseminate the application. And then just any individuals. The core group of fellows that we've established over the 4 years are really great about disseminating it through all of their networks. And so that's helped us kind of get the word out a little bit. Facebook, of course, has been probably the most important for us. Facebook, Twitter, social media, because mobile access, mobile penetration in Pakistan is so huge that we've been able to reach people who don't even have a computer or internet access necessarily, but have a mobile phone.
So those who are watching this program then would like to know the places to keep in touch with, people to keep in touch with, or just monitor some websites. What would you suggest? What would they bookmark and basically make a habit of reading something?
Definitely bookmark www.elpak.org. It is the website, ELPAC.
We'll put it up on the screen as well. Good.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Say that one more time, please. Yeah.
So it's ELPAC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. ELP PAC.
Yeah.
PAC?
PAK.
PAK. Oh, Pakistan.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can also go to the Atlantic Council's website, the South Asia Center. You'll find links there. And then, of course, ELP on Facebook. So that probably has our biggest viewership. So that's just Facebook/ELPAC Forum.
And I'm sure, Nazia, you have heard about this before. Language is a big issue in Pakistan. I mean, there are a lot of very bright people who are not very well versed in English. They can't answer those questions that you ask them to write or the essay. So any idea about how do you address that? Because then predominantly you get people who are only good in English.
Right.
Those who are who can express themselves in that language, but a huge majority of Pakistanis, they don't actually speak or understand the English language. So what happens then?
So the application is in English. We do entertain responses that are in English and Urdu. So in the past 4 years, we have received Urdu applications, and we are completely happy to that. We understand that that is a concern, and so to broaden our reach, we do accept Urdu applications.
I think that's a very good point for them to know, that please don't be discouraged if you think you're not very good at English. You should still apply, and yeah, please go ahead.
And also during the 3-week study tour, we do have interpreters from the State Department that travel with us. So if there is anyone who feels uncomfortable with their English language skills, we do have interpreters to address that, traveling with the group to every meeting.
Very good. Okay, so then how they're selected? Of course, they apply, and then who makes the final decision? People sitting here, or you have someone, a group, a committee in Pakistan who just,
So it's a rigorous application process. We have a couple of stages. We do an initial review of all the applications and shortlist them with a team here in Washington, D.C. So that's myself, that's my colleague Homa Haq, who's really guided this program from the onset. Mainly the two of us, with the support of our team at the South Asia Center, we do review applications here, and we conduct Skype interviews, so video or phone conversations, and then shortlist to about 50 or so individuals that we interview in person. And when we interview in person, we usually have a team of individuals. So Homa and I will interview people in Pakistan. We'll go to different cities across the country so that we can reach as many people as possible. And then we'll have usually our colleague at Yes Network will join us for those interviews. Some colleagues from the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad may also join us. Anyone who can give us insight, who maybe knows what's going on the ground, knows the youth organizations on the ground better than maybe we do sitting in Washington, D.C.
So how often these programs are run in a year? How many programs do you have?
So each year we have one group of fellows.
One group, okay. So once you select 15 people, they're good for 1 year. I mean, then the next year we'll have an opportunity to apply.
So each year we select 15, but we continue the engagement with them. So the fellows from 2012 we still talk to on a regular basis.
On the ground, in the field, in Pakistan, right? Okay, so let's just review the whole process one more time. I just want them to totally understand this. Okay, so first they see an advertisement or maybe an announcement through your website or maybe their school, their universities, and then they apply. How long is the application? Is it too tedious, too hard to fill out? Or I just want to, I hate to say this expression, dumbing down, but I just want to make sure that there's no confusion left for the young people in Pakistan. They understand each and everything very well. They don't have to call you again to find out, what is exactly they need to do.
Sure.
So yes, they see an announcement. How did they get to that announcement again? I mean, where would they just go to this ELPAC? Okay, and then the Atlantic Council website. You can Google it, Atlantic Council, and also you said through some universities, bulletin boards, or are they?
Sure, I think the best place if you're looking for the application is go to the ELPAC website, go to the Atlantic Council website, or go to the ELPAC Forum Facebook page.
So for a typical candidate, how long will it take to fill the application out?
So I was actually speaking, one of our candidates this year said it took him about 4 to 5 hours.
Okay.
He saw the application on his mobile phone and then went to an internet cafe, and it took him about 4 to 5 hours.
Okay.
It really depends. It depends on how comfortable you are speaking to your work, but it consists of probably 10 to 15 questions just about yourself. Where you were born, where you're living, your age, where you went to school, your focus area. And then it's about 6 to 7 essay questions about the work that you're doing, about an initiative that you've spearheaded, challenges that you've faced. And those essay questions may change up, but it really is just speaking to what an individual is doing on the ground and the change that they have made, and then the vision for the future.
Okay, and then how long they have to wait after they submit the application?
So the application is, and this is all subject to change just a little bit,
Right.
but usually in the past, the application is due in March.
And once again, for the record, they can also fill these applications out in Urdu, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. Okay,
Correct.
Go ahead, please. Yeah.
So the application's usually due in March, and usually in about 2 months' time, we'll have some sort of feedback in terms of the next stages. And then the Skype interview, the in-person interviews takes about another 2 to 3 months. So overall, the whole selection process, I'd say, is about a 5 to 6 month process.
Okay. One last question about this program, then we'll get into a little bit politics and international relations, which is also your field, right? Okay, so the majority of those who go back, and of course you keep in touch with them, what they tend to do? I mean, have you seen the enhancements in their, capabilities, like, more expression, better communication skills, and what they do basically when they go back?
Absolutely. So a huge goal of this program is to really create a nucleus of change makers in the country. So the idea is we can't address all of the problems. We can't help them, if they have a small problem as they're trying to execute something for their organization. So having these connections with young change makers across the country helps them address those small things and to scale up the work that they're doing. So we've had a lot of success stories, particularly the 2012 batch. Since it's been so long, we've seen them really grow a lot. So I have a couple of anecdotes, if
please
you do
go ahead.
care.
Yeah,
Sure.
please go ahead. We'll probably take 2 minutes extra.
Okay.
But go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So Imran Khan from our 2012 batch.
Not the politician Imran Khan.
Not the politician Imran
Okay.
Khan. He
One of your
is
students, yeah.
from that region, but not the politician.
Okay.
He actually was selected as the youngest country director for Seeds of Peace, and that was through some of the connections that he had through the Atlantic Council, through the South Asia Center. That wasn't the only reason he was selected, but it did certainly kind of build the connection to Seeds of Peace, and now is really just working for youth across the country. And it's just very cool that he is the youngest director. Is really
How
able.
old is he?
Currently,
Well, you claim he's the youngest one, so we might as well know his age. Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure of his age, but he
probably
is
early 20s, I would say.
not early 20s, but probably late 20s, I
Late
believe.
20s,
Yeah,
okay.
because when
Okay.
he was in his 26, 27 when he came
Okay,
here.
good.
So
Very good. So let's go to some political issues.
Sure.
Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Nawaz Sharif, was here. You followed him a little bit not exactly in person, but of course in the news.
The news.
So what do you think? How did it go from your perspective?
Well, I think that no one was really surprised by the news, by the conversations that came out of Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's visit. I think if you've been watching Pakistan on both sides of the relationship, the talking points were kind of the same that we've seen over the last few months. You know, there's a commitment to investment, to increasing Pakistan's market access. There's a commitment to clean energy and focusing on climate change goals. And of course, a commitment to an Afghan-led and Afghan-owned reconciliation and peace process. I think a lot of those same things were addressed, and it was kind of understood that there is a shared commitment. I think the one real takeaway, the one success, is that we really see the United States is making a clear and unified message for Pakistan that they are committed to the U.S.-Pakistan relationship and that they want it to be multidimensional. They don't want it to be necessarily, even if they are guided by a couple of traditional security concerns, counterterrorism, Afghanistan, they do want the relationship to be stronger and to be guided on other things as well.
Again, it's an ongoing process, it's a work in progress, and it will continue to, and it's important for both countries. And I understand, Nazia, you're American, but your parents were from Pakistan?
Pakistani,
right?
correct.
Okay, so you're Pakistani American, quote unquote. Okay, so you have a little bias, so to speak, right? Because you know your heritage is Pakistani. What do you think? Are you satisfied with the policies that the United States pursues in Pakistan as a young Pakistani American? Anything that you would like to suggest to the policymakers here?
Well, I think that this is a very good move. I think that expressing to Pakistan that their relationship is not being viewed just through the Afghanistan lens is very important to strengthen it and to take it to the next level. I think there's been, in the past 3 years, there's been a long process of kind of recovering from some damaging things that happened in the relationship. And so realizing that we can work together on education is incredibly important. So the Let Girls Learn initiative that Michelle Obama announced with Maryam Sharif is really important. And I think that, of course, I'm biased in a lot of ways. So I think that the promotion of civil society is just so incredibly important in Pakistan. And I think that the United States being a little bit more vocal about those things that are occurring, you know, the consolidation of democracy and really working with civil society to encourage democracy is important. Whether that's successful, I think that's another question. But I think at the very least to have that unified messaging across different organizations in the United States, I think is useful.
Very good. On this note, we'll end this show, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. It's a privilege and great discussion. I hope our audience, and especially young people who are watching this program, they can use some of this information and learn about this program, and hopefully, you know, see us here in Washington later this year or maybe next year. So saying goodbye to you for this week. This is Faiz Rahman, and you're watching Cafe DC. Thank you for watching.